Hello, my name is Rigo Sainez, and for my business law video project, I will be analyzing an episode of the classic animated series, The Simpsons. If you somehow haven't heard of this show, The Simpsons is an iconic animated sitcom that revolves around the satirical adventures and misadventures of the dysfunctional Simpsons family in the fictional town of Springfield. For my analysis, I will specifically focus on a 1991 episode from the second season titled Bart Gets Hit by a Car. I bet you can see where this is going. Alright, let's get straight into it. The episode gets straight to action as Bart is maliciously skateboarding around town. I'll let the rest play out as our first law concept is coming up shortly.
I think the boy's hurt.
Oh, for crying out loud! Just give him a nickel and let's get going.
I think we should call an ambulance, sir.
Do.
Wow, that was rough. We just got a glimpse of our first law concept. Pop quiz. Did it have to do with A, contract infringement, B, unintentional torts of negligence, C, agency fiduciary duties, or D, intentional torts of battery? The correct answer is B, as Mr. Burns breached his duty of care to operate his vehicle safely, resulting in harm to Bart. Because of this, Mr. Burns may be liable for financial damages to Bart's medical bills and injuries. If we look back on our lecture on negligence, we'd remember that there needs to be 4 required elements for establishing the unintentional tort of negligence. The first is duty of care. The defendant, Mr. Burns in this case, owed a legal duty to the plaintiff to exercise a standard of reasonable care to prevent foreseeable harm. The second is breach of duty. The defendant's actions violated or breached the duty of care owed to the plaintiff. Bart was skating across the crosswalk, where he had the right-of-way as a pedestrian. While Mr. Burns may have been caught by surprise, he should have nonetheless been precautious, as Bart did have the right-of-way as a pedestrian. The third required element is causation. The defendant's breach of duty was the actual and proximate cause of the plaintiff's injuries or damages, and the fourth requirement is damages. The plaintiff suffered legally recognized and compensable injuries or harm as a result of the defendant's negligent conduct. As we see in the following clip, Bart wakes up in a hospital bed after seemingly being blacked out and briefly going to hell. He seems to have a gnarly bump on his head and injuries to his feet, according to the doctor.
Well, we've got a nasty bump on our head, haven't we?
Ow! Quit it.
And a little tiny broken toe.
As it seems, the injuries aren't too horrific. But in the hospital, a sketchy lawyer named Lionel Hutz tries to convince Bart's family that Bart's injuries are worse than they seem and the family may be owed huge financial compensation. However, we could see the sketchiness of the lawyer come to fruition, which introduces us to our second law concept. Don't worry, no pop quiz this time.
Now, let's pretend you're on the witness stand. How are you, Bart?
Fine.
Oh, fine. Isn't that nice? Bart says he's fine. Wrong! You are not fine! You are in constant pain!
I am in constant pain. Dad, may I please make an observation?
Oh, what is it?
I think this is all a charade to make Bart look more injured than he really is.
Well, maybe Lisa does have a point. I don't mind you boys doing this in the living room, but in court, doesn't Bart have to tell the truth?
Yeah, but what is truth, if you follow me? Now,
Lisa and Marge are correct. As we saw from the clip, Lionel is trying to get Bart to exaggerate his injuries, which can fall under the intentional tort of fraudulent misrepresentation. From our class lecture, we learned that intentional misrepresentation, which falls under fraud, has 4 elements. The first is that the wrongdoer made a false representation of a material fact. The second is that the wrongdoer had knowledge that the representation was false and intended to deceive the innocent party. These first 2 elements definitely relate to Bart's situation, as he is falsely representing his injuries, and Bart, his family, and his lawyer are aware of this in order to deceive the jury in receiving big compensation. The third element is that the innocent party justifiably relied on the misrepresentation, and fourth, the innocent party was or will be injured. As we see from this clip between Homer and the defendant, Mr. Burns, we see that Mr. Burns does justifiably rely on the misrepresentation and knows he will be financially injured. So, he tries to settle the case outside of court with a $500,000 cash settlement. From 1991 to 2024, this would be about $1.1 million today. While the scenario of exaggerating injuries is somewhat common in real life, especially when it comes to car accidents, it is still nonetheless an intentional tort of misrepresentation. Things are looking good for Bart from the judge and the jury until Bart's innocent truth-telling mother takes a stand. She cannot help but spill the beans when questioned about the case, which sways the jury's opinion.
Mrs. Simpson?
I'm sorry, but my mother always said if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. To be honest, he seemed a lot more concerned about wrapping Bart in bandages than in making him feel better. Now that I think about it, I'm not sure he's even a doctor. But, well, I guess he did miss 3 days of school.
Oh, 3
although
days.
he doesn't really like school all that much.
No.
So I guess that may not count as English.
No, it doesn't. But your lawyer, assuming he is a lawyer, is asking for $1 million. Well, we can't blame them for trying, can we? Thank you very much, Mrs. Simpson.
No, Marv. $1 million. My wife cost me $1 million.
Homer?
That about wraps it up for this legal analysis. For recap, Mr. Burns committed an unintentional tort of negligence by not being careful and accidentally hitting Bart with his vehicle. Bart could have got some compensation for his minor injuries, but they were convinced by their lawyer to commit the intentional tort of fraudulent misrepresentation of his injuries in order to receive $1 million. Unfortunately for Bart, his mother slipped up and lost them any compensation. Lesson to be learned: don't fraudulently misrepresent your injuries in court. I hope you enjoyed this Simpsons application of torts law, and thank you for watching.